Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Spanning the Need. I'm your host, Anthony Spano. Tonight, we're going to talk about life and the news. Tonight, I have a great guest on me for the WFMJ evening anchor. Oh God, I just went blank. Derek Steyer. It's one of those days. Derek, thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule to come on board.
Absolutely glad to be here, Anthony.
And it's one of those days because we're almost gearing towards cold and everyone's kind of indoors, and especially with the pandemic. So, and we'll get into a little bit about that. But Derek, could you talk a little bit about how you got to where you are now, kind of your career path and kind of where you are on the news now?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey for me, to say the least. I think I don't know that I would, if you asked me 25, 23 years ago if I would be here, I don't think I would have said yes. But so I grew up in St. Louis and went to high school there, and started off going to college at Northeast Missouri State University, and I was pre-med. And so I thought I was always into sports as a kid.
Doctor.
So I thought I was going to be a sports doctor, a sports medicine. I was going to do all that. I did one semester and said, nah, I don't think that's exactly what I want to do. That was a little bit too much work. And so I always knew I wanted to do something with sports. So my mom actually suggested to me when I said, yeah, I don't want to do pre-med anymore. She said, what about sports broadcasting? I said, okay, well, maybe. I was in the theater in high school, so I always loved doing plays and shows. I can't sing. I don't have any kind of talent in that aspect. But I loved acting. And so I thought, well, maybe broadcasting, it has a little bit of that, a little bit of the flair. And so I transferred back home, went to a community college for a year and took some broadcasting classes and really enjoyed it. And my professor said I did a really good job with it. And so I said, okay, let's see what this can do. So then I transferred to Arkansas State University, and they had a really good student-run TV station, and especially for sports. So I got down there, and they let me concentrate just on sports. They didn't have me do the news, the weather, like some of these other schools and their TV run stations are now. So I was able to really concentrate on sports. I got some really good education there in terms of broadcasting. And I decided so let me back up 1 year. So after I got down to Arkansas State, my junior year, I needed to do an internship because that was the big thing for broadcasting, is you got to get your feet in the door, get some experience with an internship. So I went back and did one at my hometown in St. Louis at KSDK, the NBC affiliate in St. Louis. And I did an internship there in the sports department, and it was really great. But it was such a big market that I really couldn't do anything. I could log tape, I could, watch and write down highlights, but it was a union shop, so I couldn't go edit, I couldn't pick up a camera and shoot, I couldn't do any of that stuff. I could really only just observe. So I thought it was good, but it wasn't really, I needed more. So before my senior year, so that was the summer before my junior year. The summer before my senior year, I did an internship at the local station there in Jonesboro, Arkansas, where Arkansas State University is. The ABC affiliate. It's the only station they've got in the town. And so I did the internship there. And I actually had 3 stories that aired on the station in the sports report. And it just so happened to work out that the sports director at the time needed to have heart surgery. And so it was a 2-person department, and the weekend guy was going to get bumped up to sports director. And they needed and then somebody else from the station was going to fill on the weekends, but they needed some help during the week as a sports reporter, Friday nights for football and some other stuff. And so they asked me if I would be willing to do that while I went to school during my senior year. And so I did. And so I did that. Well, come December, January, the sports director decided, you know what, I think he was in his early 60s. He's like, you know what, I had heart surgery. I'm good. I'm just going to retire. And so the weekend sports anchor was going to get that job, and they asked me if I wanted to apply. And I said, okay, but I have no shot here. I'm still in college. There's another guy at the station that was already going to apply for that job. But I said, I guess I got nothing to lose. So let me give it a shot. So I applied, and I ended up getting it. Now, here's one of my biggest regrets. So I took the job full time and I quit school. And I was literally a semester and a half away from graduating. And I hate that. So I'm going to get one message out there real quick right now. If there's anybody out there in school thinking about this in the same situation, stay in school and get that degree. I really wish I could have. And I still may go back. I recently inquired about what I needed left. But because it was so long ago, this was back in 1997, 98, a lot of my stuff doesn't transfer, and I would have to do a lot more work. It was like 2 years more work to get my degree, and I don't really know if I want to go through that at this point in my career. But I digress. So got the job as the weekend sports anchor, still in school, still in college, quit school, but got a full-time job. I'm making $16,000 a year, and I'm thinking, man, this is great. And this was in 1997. So I worked there for about a year and a half. And there's an opening. So that at the time, that station is owned by Raycom Media, and they have now since been purchased by Gray. They're owned by Gray Media. So there was an opening at a station in Montgomery, Alabama, for a weekend sports anchor there, and this was a pretty good jump. So if you think about TV market sizes, Jonesboro, Arkansas is like market 187. This is out of like 212 markets. This is like one of the smallest in the country, and Montgomery was about 117. So this was a really big jump, and I would get to cover Auburn and Alabama and some really big college sports. So I took that job. So I was weekend sports anchor in Montgomery, Alabama in 1999. I get down there and thinking I'm just going to be there for a few years and would end up, moving on somewhere else. Well, and lo and behold, I ended up staying about 14 years. And it just was a really great place to work. But then I found out that the opportunities in sports, in local television sports, were very few and far between. Good jobs. Now, I could probably go smaller or whatnot, but I really kind of wanted to. My goal was always to get back to my hometown of St. Louis and work back there again. But those opportunities just really never presented themselves for me. So I ended up staying, worked weekends all those years because they had a sports director at the time that was basically from there and was going to work his way out. So fast forward to 2013, and my wife and I have one kid, and we have another one on the way. And we have no family down there. Her family is actually here in Trumbull County. She's from Champion. And we said, you know what, let's get closer to family, whether it be my family or her family. And she ended up becoming a finalist for a job in Canton. I could never really find anything in St. Louis. So she found a job in Canton at the Timken Corporation. And I said, oh, shoot, if she's going to get this, I better, find a job. So I called WFMJ, called WKBN to see what kind of openings they had. And I talked to Mona Alexander, my news director. And just so happens that they were getting ready to launch the weekend morning show. And so I sent my resume, sent my reel. She really liked what I put on there and everything. And I had for a couple of years been thinking about making that switch to news because I thought there might be some more opportunities. And so talking through this and the weekend morning show, they offered the job to me. I came up, interviewed, they offered the job to me. And I said, you know what, let's do this. My wife didn't get that job in Canton. I got the offer from FMJ, and I said, we looked at each other and we just said, let's do it. Let's go ahead and move on up here. And so we did. And she was able to find a job a couple months later. We sold our house about a month after that. And so then August of 2013, I moved up, she moved up, and in October of 2013, and the rest is kind of history. And so I launched the weekend morning show at WFMJ, did that for 2 years. When Bob Black retired in 2015, I applied for that job and I was able to get that job. And so in 2015, I took over as the anchor for 6 and 11, working with Leslie Barrett. And now Leslie has since decided to stay home and be a stay-at-home mom. And so now we're getting ready to usher in a new area with some new co-anchors that we'll be able to announce here pretty shortly. And we're going to start that, I think, at the beginning of the year. But that's kind of in a nutshell how my career started in St. Louis as a pre-med sports medicine student to now a broadcast communications and sports. and now a news anchor here in Youngstown, Ohio. But love it here because my wife is from Champion. We live in Cortland, and so we wanted to be somewhat close to her family. Her mom watches our two boys now while they get off the bus at school and before school and stuff like that. So, but that's how I kind of got here. It's kind of been an interesting. I kind of worked my way down south, and then back up north.
I have to ask this question because
Sure.
you mentioned Arkansas and you mentioned Missouri.
Yeah.
How'd you meet your wife?
Okay. Yes. So this is kind of funny. Met her. So actually married my first wife in Arkansas. So we met in college. Met her, and I have two boys with her, two older boys. One's about to graduate college, and another one's a senior in high school. And then we ended up getting divorced in 2005. And in 2006, I met my wife at a bar, but she was my competition's weekend news anchor. So we were both in TV. We knew of each other. We had kind of crossed paths a little bit, but we met out at a bar with some mutual friends. I was with some people from my station. She was there with people from her station. And we ended up just chit-chatting and talking, and the rest is history. And we ended up getting together and getting married. And once we got married, she got out of the business because it's just so hard for two people in this business to have a family, which is what we wanted to do. And so, yeah, it's kind of funny that we used to have this competition when we were dating about who knew each other, who was known more, her or me. And so it was always kind of funny. And but that's how we met. So
and who won?
I would say she won. Yeah, she was the weekend.
What is it? Happy wife, happy life.
Exactly. She was the weekend news anchor. I was weekend sports, but I had been there longer. She didn't come to Montgomery until probably 2004. So, and I'd been there since '99. So, but yeah, I always just let her win. That's easiest.
I try. It's an Italian thing.
No.
What was that transition like to go from kind of sports to news?
Right.
Was that a big transition?
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, it would have been if they had thrown me maybe right into like general assignment reporting, where I was going and covering city council, or I was covering breaking news, murders and crime and all that. But actually it worked out well because I was able to come in and do feature stories. So when we launched that weekend morning show, it was me and Jennifer Brindisi. And they both kind of had us doing the lighthearted feature stories to fill out those hour-long newscasts. And so I think for me, whether it was telling like a sports story or telling a feature story, the elements of telling a story are all the same. But for me, that transition just made it easier because I was just kind of telling a light, fluffy, human interest story. And so, I thought I did well at that with sports. And then they worked me in because we had some harder segments during that newscast. Press pass is one of them. And then we would bring on some legislators for other segments. And I was able to really kind of learn on the go with those, but I wasn't thrown right into it. And so I had the features, and then I was able to work on that transition to the harder stuff. And that's interviewing the legislators and whatnot. And so I really worked hard at that. I prepared. I tried researching as much as I could and really trying to formulate questions that were hard hitting and went in depth. And so I think having that time, those 2 years to really work on that transition into harder news, I think really helped me make this transition from sports to news. I hope I'm making sense. I know I'm rambling a little bit, but
you're fine.
It was a nice soft transition into the features, but then I was able to work on, and I would go cover a fire occasionally, and I would get some experience. I would go cover a shooting or a homicide, and I would get a little bit of experience with that. And so I think that helped make that transition easier. I think if I'd have been thrown right into breaking news or right into general assignment reporting, I may have struggled a little bit because I didn't exactly know fully what I was doing in that aspect, but had a lot of good reporters around me there at the station too that I was able to learn from. And I really made sure to try to soak it in from the Michelle Nixes and the Janet Rogers, the Matt Stones, and Glenn Stevens, and all of that experience that I was able to kind of watch and soak in, if you will. I think that helped to make that transition.
Well, and it's funny because Janet Rogers, Michelle Nix. I think between the two of them, I think they got like 50 years experience.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. They've been
uh,
here a long time.
and we talk about that in and you've been in the business between sports and normal
Right.
news. Kind of has news changed over the last 20 years, and how has it changed if it has?
Well, yeah, for sure. So when I first started, and just in the news gathering aspect, I first started with big old camera and a bag, and a three-quarter tape, and you have to edit tape to tape, and then it changed to the digital cameras, and they got a little bit smaller. And now you see the technology now where I've got like a little small camera, and again it's on a little micro SD card, and so you're popping it in laptops and you're editing that way. So the technology in that aspect, we didn't have what are called these backpack units, these live view backpack units. This is where we can go live anywhere with basically a little briefcase type piece of equipment. Before we had to use satellite trucks and microwave trucks, and you could
I
only
remember
go
those
live. Yeah, you could only
big
go live
trucks that
from
with the antenna would go
with
all the
the
way out,
antenna.
and the
Yep,
truck would
yep.
be leaning one side or the other.
Exactly. And so now you don't see many stations. We certainly don't use our microwave truck anymore because we've got three of these live microwave units. We can just basically go anywhere. So I think in terms of gathering news and the technology in that aspect, it's changed a bunch. I think the storytelling hasn't changed. You've still got your basics, who, what, when, why, and where, and you're trying to tell the facts and hold people accountable. And so I think the storytelling in that aspect hasn't really changed. But and now you look at what happened since the pandemic began. Now we're able to do these Zooms, we're able to do these Skypes and FaceTimes, and we're able to get our news product and content virtually, which I think is really going to change the game in terms of what the news business is going to look like. So I think in that aspect, in those ways, that's how news for me has changed.
Now let's talk about the pandemic.
Yeah.
Everything was good in January and February, and then March comes, everything gets shut down.
Right.
How has that changed? I know you talked just quite about how you guys present the news, but how has
Right.
that changed the news, impacting the news in general, especially the way you guys give it?
Um, that's a great question. I think I think people are counting on us more than ever. When this thing hit, I think you saw ratings really go up in terms of people watching the news, and so I think um, they were really relying on us to make sure that we were getting as much information out to the public as possible. And really, it's been so hard to try to get all the facts too, because think about it. You had scientists saying one thing at the beginning, and then they're changing their mind here, and you got the CDC with their guidelines here, and then they're changing the guidelines here, and so it's been a lot to really try to make sure people are getting the most accurate information that they possibly can. When this thing first hit for our TV station, our general manager Jack Gerdick was very proactive in making sure that we could socially distance. So the whole sales staff and second floor, man, they left. They were out of the building, and then they came up with a plan to basically move a lot of the reporters out remote. And you either worked from home or you worked from just outside the building to really try to limit the amount of people that came into the building. And so we have a very small staff that is actually working inside. I'm one of them, one of a handful of people that still come into the station and work. A lot of other people are still outside. So I think that impacted us a little bit in terms of how we present the news. And really, we struggled a little bit to be able to get out and get places because people didn't really want us around. They wanted to do the stuff more virtually. But I think in terms of what you did, back to your question, it's really just put us on our toes. That we have to make sure we're getting. I mean, we always get all the sides, but I mean, we've really got to make sure we're honed in and we're accurate here because people want to know what's going on with case numbers or with virus and vaccines and all this other stuff. And you watch the news, it's a lot of, coronavirus still, even back then it was. And so
I
it's
think
just
I'm
really,
COVID. I think I'm COVID-19 and news fatigued.
and there are a lot of people that are that way. Absolutely. We hear that all the time.
Especially since news is now 24 hours a day.
Right.
I mean, you guys are on 3 to 4 times a day on
Right.
on NBC Channel 21.
Right.
So
Right.
how do you kind of maneuver towards that 24-hour news cycle?
Well, it's digital. So, and that 24-hour news cycle is digital. You're getting it on your phone, you're getting it on your laptops. And so I think we've really pushed a lot more emphasis towards the web and towards digital content and getting those push alerts out there and getting content onto the web, because that's what people want. They want to consume the news 24 hours a day. And then I think what we do is then we use our newscasts to try to expand on that a little bit and maybe go a little bit more in depth that you can't do with a news story. And obviously with television, we're a visual medium, and so we're trying to show you, the pictures and the voices and hearing from people, because I think that's what truly hits with people. And so I think that's what we're doing. We're just that emphasis towards digital, getting the news out there as much as we can. And then hopefully we're bringing people into the newscast so that they can learn a little bit more that maybe they didn't learn, excuse me, via the web story or via a video on Facebook or whatever other social media platform there is.
Well, and let's talk about some of the news. Is there like a story that you just fell in love with that you've done over the years?
Oh, wow. The first one that I fell in love with, and that is my most favorite story, is a story that I did near the end of my time in Alabama. And that was, I did a story. Faulkner University is a Division III university in Montgomery, Alabama. And they had a baseball player on that team who suffered a stroke his junior year in college. And he came back from that and helped pitch the team to a World Series in his senior year. And so I was able to do that story on him. And get some great video, get some great pictures of him in the hospital, and really have him tell an amazing story of how he survived this stroke, and then just the perseverance, the determination to come back from that, and then help lead his team to victory. I think was one of the more inspiring stories that I was able to tell. But it was the first time that I'd really gone out of the box with my shooting and with my editing. I love the ESPN 30 for 30s and all those long form ESPN stories and the visual storytelling that they do. And I think I took some of that and I put some of that into this story. And so that was really been one of my favorite stories to tell. But since I came to Ohio, oh man, there's been so many. I've been blessed to be honored with some Emmy nominations for some stories that I've done. One of them was my first one was where a kid, I want to say, gosh, I forget the school district, but it was over in PA, and he was in a bad car accident. But what they were able to do is during his recovery, he was able to go to school with this iPad on a Segway. And he was able to control this Segway to and from his classes and still interact with his classmates and with his teachers and still learn. And so that was pretty neat. I got to go to the school. We followed the Segway around, and we actually did the interview through the iPad. But then we went to his house and got shots of him controlling it and getting that reverse angle and everything. And so that was a really neat story to tell. I've been able to tell some really, really neat, impactful, I think, Feed Our Valley stories. You probably are very aware of our Feed Our Valley campaign we've been doing since 2007. And I've been able to put some faces to hunger, and I've been really able to showcase, I think, the hunger problem in the Valley. And I think that's really been one of the most special parts of being here at this TV station, is being part of that campaign and raising the awareness and just trying to do whatever we can to put that spotlight on the hunger problem. And you see so many donations. I mean, this community, as you're aware of, Tony, is so giving, so so grateful and providing monetary donations for a lot of different things. And so I think being able to tell those stories with the Feed Our Valley campaign has been really great. Just this past year, I was able to tell the story of Jeff Fusco, a COVID-19 survivor from Canfield, who was told he had 2 hours to live. And was able to come back from that. And so that was very impactful to be able to tell his story and hopefully inspire others as well. So there's been so many of them, but those are a few that really stick out in my mind.
Well, and I think unfortunately, what the pandemic has done is it has shown our vulnerabilities in the area.
Agree.
But I think we knew what some of them were, but I don't think we knew as bad as it was.
Right.
And I think that's showing us, and Mike and those guys do a great job at the Second Harvest Food Bank and everything like that. And I know I've talked to him at least a half dozen times over the last 3 to 4 months, and just hearing that they may run out of food, and that's sad to see. And without the CARES Act.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Tony, because I had no idea when I did that story with him when they were at the height of the pandemic. He told me they were down to 5 days of food, and that warehouse is huge.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't believe that they were down to that little of food, and he said it was such a dangerous level. But then obviously the USDA came through and was able to purchase food, and then of course Mike DeWine sent in the National Guard to help them distribute and pack and sort and all that, because all the volunteers had to leave too. So yeah, that was a wild thing that they were that close.
And you talked a little bit about it, that you've been able to help these programs locally that you love doing. And one thing that we've probably been able to do in the summer was golf.
Yes. No golf outings at all this past summer.
No, and I hear you're an avid golfer.
I am. Yes, I am. I've been playing since I was about 13, and I try to be better than I am. It's a frustrating game for me because I think that I'm better than I am, and I'm not. But yeah, I love the station golf outings, and it just so happens that I'm married into a family that has a golf course. My father-in-law owns Cranberry Hills in Champion, a little 9-hole course. So I'll get a chance to go play out there and get my boys exposed. But love the game, but it's also a frustrating game.
Well, every time I golf, I just call it the Hackers Classic, because all I'm going to do is hack away and hit every non-fairway, tree, sand trap. I mean, I know I'm not that good. I just go out and enjoy and hit the ball. When I hit the ball bad, I think I give up about the 18th hole.
I used to be about a 12, 13 handicap, and I always felt like I could get into single digits, but I just, once you have a family and full-time career and all that, there's just no time to practice, and you got to practice. And so, yeah.
You didn't want to do a full-time career in golfing?
Oh, I would have loved to, but nope, was never there, never good enough.
Yeah, actually, I have family that lives in Champion. My wife works in Champion, so
great, nice. So Cranberry Hills.
I am familiar with that golf course. Never been there, but like I said, I got out more times golfing this summer than I have in years.
Okay. No, and my father-in-law told me that this has been the best year that they've ever had. So that you're not alone. A lot of people able to get out, enjoy nature, get out and release a little bit and just play some golf. I didn't get a chance to play as much as I would have liked, but yeah, I can totally see how a lot of people were able to get out and play.
Well, and we talk about kind of the golfing and stuff like that, is you also have a lot of fun at work.
Oh, for sure.
Talk about the camaraderie that you have with your partners. Eric Wilhelm for weather, and you had Leslie Barrett, and you'll make other announcements coming down the road. Is it like a family?
It is. And it's great. We everyone gets along, and everyone, while I think we're honed in and we're focused on working on our stories, when we're done, we can also sit back and laugh and tell stories. And, we see a lot of things in the news business, and sometimes they're hard to process. Sometimes they're easy to process, but I think the relatability that we all have, we can bounce that stuff off one another. I think that's why it worked well with my wife. We were both in the news business, and we could talk to each other about what was going on in our careers and what was going on with our days, because we understood what was going on. And so while some other people maybe outside of this don't really get what we deal with behind the scenes and trying to put a newscast on or gather content for the news, we can discuss that with our colleagues. But then there's also the stuff that we have in common. Like, Eric and I have played golf. For a few years there before this thing hit, I had a little, WFMJ Open is what I called it. And so I brought everybody to Cranberry Hills. And, I'd bring 12, 13 people there. Yeah, I'll get you an invite. Yeah, as soon as we can get this thing back. But
I'll just don't put me on a. See, I remember I did a tournament about 10 years ago, and we won the tournament. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't because of me.
It wasn't because of you? You brought in some ringers, or somebody, had some ringers, I guess.
No, I was just asked to join as a fourth teammate. I enjoyed it. These guys could hit the ball. I was just along for the ride.
They brought you for your company, the conversation, and the.
I don't know how good I was in the conversation, because every word out of their mouths was, why couldn't you hit the ball, Tony?
Well, tell jokes. Maybe you're the funny guy.
I don't know, but it's a good time. But at the same time, you get along with the people around you at work.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's times that we've gone out and we'll go get a drink or whatnot afterwards, and we'll hang out a little bit. But I'll go up to Eric's office and chat with him about stuff, see what's going on. And Andrew DePaulo is a fun guy to talk to, and I like I don't get to see the morning show folks much, but I do enjoy hanging out with Steve. And another time that we get to hang out and have a lot of fun are at those events like the Champagne Luncheon, the Junior Women's League of Warren, and the Easter Seals fashion show, and we get to have a lot of fun with that. And so I think when you have that camaraderie off the anchor desk and outside the studio, I think it really helps. What can make is a demanding job can make it, just even that much more enjoyable too, because, we enjoy going to work. We enjoy working with the people that we're going to be dealing with and talking to.
So it's almost like I hear it's not because of the pay. It's because you love what you do.
Absolutely.
It's like basketball for me. I referee high school basketball. You got to have thick skin. I enjoy the game. That's kind of the notion of it. You enjoy the kids, you enjoy the game, and where else can I get paid to exercise too?
Right. I mean, no, absolutely. You're not going to get rich in this profession. Can you make a nice living? Absolutely, you can. But I do it because I love telling stories, and I love telling people's stories, and making sure that I can be there to hold officials accountable, because we're that conduit for the public, and I enjoy being that sort of liaison to them, and being able to share what's going on in people's communities, and making sure we're telling them what they need to know and what they want to know and is important in their lives. That's why we do it.
Tell us any fun stories that people may have not seen or heard on the news that have happened behind the scenes at the studios. Any just fun, outgoing? Has there been any? I know there's always something, because I've been on TV before where I'm getting interviewed, and there's a lot of off the camera fun stuff. It's just a good time.
Absolutely.
But then when it gets down to business, you get down to business.
Right, for sure. And for me, it's when I was on the weekend morning show. And so when we launched that, boy, what a great time we had in that. It was some hard news segments, but we had like cooking segments, and we had lots of lighthearted stuff too. It was just a fun. That's why I love the morning show, because you get to show your personality as an anchor. But when we were in breaks, between segments, I probably shouldn't be sharing this. I and my engineer / director and my producer, we had Nerf guns. And we would shoot Nerf guns in between the breaks of the show. Yep, they would come running into the studio, and we would die. And yeah, exactly. Yes. So we did that. We had a lot of fun with that. We had fun when. So I would make slow-mo version of videos on my iPhone. So they would come in, and it graduated from Nerf Nerf guns. Then it went to like paper balls, and we'd be firing paper balls at each other and stuff. And there was one time where it hit me, and I like acted like I was all, hurt, and everything went flying on the desk, and somebody filmed it in slow mo. We shared that with all of each other. I mean, just stuff like that in between. And then when we had an hour break between our shows, because we would go on at like 6 a.m. and then like 8 a.m., we would have some fun with that. I had a basketball hoop down in the morning show office, and we'd play horse or we'd play basketball, for a few minutes, and then we'd get back to work. But that kind of stuff, I think, behind the scenes that people don't get to see, really made it a lot of fun. Let me tell you one quick joke we did. We had one photographer, Dan Pushkar, who was always playing jokes on us. There was one time I came into my office.
Oh, he tried to play a joke on me. So
did he?
That's what I was told, but I never saw it or
okay.
I mean, years ago. Right.
Okay.
That's what I was told, but that's all third person stuff.
He filled my office with every single floor fan and said, all your fans want to see you. And I mean, this was probably 30 fans in my office. We had a cardboard cutout one time of, I want to say like Ellen or something like that. I can't remember what it was. We were trying to prank, I think, Brindisi. And we set it in front of the elevator on the third floor, right as the elevator doors would open. Well, it turns out it was our HR, Cindy Fliss, who opened the elevator, and she got scared and punched it. And oh my goodness, we were so just scared and just laughed our butts off because, man, it was just so funny that it worked out for the wrong person. But we played lots of little jokes and pranks like that behind the scenes for the morning show stuff. And Dan's the king. Dan is the king of
and you still have your job, so I guess HR was perfectly fine with it.
She was fine with it. Yes, she kind of got a good laugh out of it afterwards.
When you see, I can only imagine. Let me ask you if there, when we talk about stories that you've done over the course of your career, is there one that the story you really didn't get but one fell in your lap?
So those would be two different. Is that one story that didn't?
Well, one story that you were trying to get,
right,
but then ended up getting another story out of it.
Oh gosh, wow, that's putting me on the spot there. I can't. To be honest with you, I think I would sit here forever to think about it. I can't think of anything off the top of my mind, but I will tell you that stories do pivot and change quite often. You go in with one sense of what you think it's going to be, and it's definitely not that. But there's not really been one that I can say and tell you that it stands out that way. I've been fortunate to be handed a couple of things. Like, it was pretty neat. I'll tell you, one of the neatest things for me was when Vice President Joe Biden came to town when he was stumping for Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election, and he came to Lordstown, and the White House at the time was looking for a local reporter to do a one-on-one with him, and they had asked Sherrod Brown's people, hey, do you have anybody that you would recommend? And they brought up my name, and I mean that was just unbelievable that they would think of me and have that kind of respect for me to be able to do that. And so I was able to get a one-on-one with Joe Biden after his speech, so which I thought was pretty cool. Obviously, being able to interview a vice president was a highlight of my career. I've interviewed some big sports figures, but being able to interview the vice president one-on-one was pretty darn neat. And now I've got a picture to show that he's going to be the next president. We'll obviously wait and see, but that's I thought that was pretty neat, because it doesn't matter what party you're for. It's pretty neat to be able to interview some of the most powerful people in the world, and that was pretty cool. So, but no, I can't really think of anything that really story I was trying to get and didn't get it, but got something else. I'll have to think about that. If I do, I'll email you.
Yeah, not a problem. Well, and we talk about the news, and we talked a little bit about behind the scenes. Right. One thing that people have always, it's like the ongoing question is, what do you really wear pants-wise behind the anchor's desk?
So when I first did sports, we had a location where we sat down at the desk. So I wore shorts all the time. Never wore pants. Then they moved us to a standing up location, and I had to wear pants that matched my suit or whatnot. So I did that. So then I get up here, and I wore suit pants and suits the entire time. Not until the last year or two have I decided to be a little bit more casual. And when I'm a solo anchor, and when you notice me anchoring solo, for the most part, I'm wearing jeans or I'm wearing shorts in the summer because they can cut the camera off at the waist. But when I have to double anchor and sometimes we have to stand up together, it'll show, down to my knees or whatnot. And so I'll wear suit pants. And anytime that I have a hard interview, like on the soft set or something like that, obviously I'll be wearing a suit. But yeah, if I can hide it, Tony, I'm wearing shorts or jeans.
Well, like right now,
business
I could have pajama pants on.
You could.
But I don't.
I don't either, because I'm heading into work after this. I've got my suit pants on. But yeah, absolutely. If you can hide it, do it. Be comfortable. I wear tennis shoes. I'll tell you that much. I don't wear my dress shoes quite as often as I used to.
Well, you want to be comfortable.
Absolutely.
It's funny kind of how that works. And I'll ask you this: is there one person, when you talked about interviews, is there one person that was probably a great interview? I know you mentioned the vice president.
Sure.
But was there one interview that you've had in kind of your career that you really enjoyed, that was probably one of your best ones?
Ooh. Wow.
Or a bunch. It could be a handful.
I think I've had a chance to interview a lot of different sports celebrities and stuff like that. And, I've got a chance to be in there with Tiger Woods and stuff like that. And that was really cool. But in terms of content, none of the big names really give you anything really great. I mean, they're so political, or they're just, politically correct. And so I think it's more of the really inspiring stories like Jeff from Canfield that I was talking about, and Mike Iberis, really being frank with me and telling me, just what it was, instead of, maybe sugarcoating it a little bit. And so I don't know if there's really one that really stands out. Tony, I have a hard time remembering who I interviewed yesterday, much less 20 years ago. So
kids do that to you?
They do. I've interviewed so many people, but I think it's really, for me, the more impactful are those stories that the local people that have been inspiring to me and have been really honest with what they're going through. I've had a chance to do some stories with people and going through addiction and alcohol, substance abuse, and just their candor and their honesty, and hearing them speak and trying to, help tell their story. I think those really kind of help stand out to me too.
Okay. Is there anyone you'd want to interview in your career before you retire?
Before I retire. In this
making you think, aren't I, before work?
Yeah, you are. In the sports world, I really enjoyed the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance. And so I think I would love to interview like a Michael Jordan, somebody on that level in the sports world. In the news world,
could be anyone. Doesn't have to be. To be news. Could be anyone.
It could be. Yeah, you're right. Because I'm a big entertainment guy too. I love movies and TV and all that stuff. So, man, that's hard. It's hard to pick just one. Wow.
Or a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't like I said.
Man, Tony, that's really put me on the spot. Well,
what else do you expect from me?
I know, right? I don't. Yeah. I'll tell you what. Bob Costas was the sports anchor that I grew up watching and idolizing and wanting to emulate and really try to be like. So I would love to, pick his brain. He's a St. Louis guy as well. And so I would love to maybe interview him before we go. But musicians, entertainers, any of them, it would be awesome. I love the entertainment and musician beat too. So I love telling those type of stories. So Dave Grohl would be kind of cool, the local guy
Yeah,
from Warren. I'd love to get an interview with him sometime, sit down with him and talk to him about his career. That would be pretty neat.
okay. We talk about kind of where you've kind of been in the past and where
Yeah.
you are now. Do you look at any goals or anything over the next couple of years? I know I've asked that question a lot to people, and I really don't expect much outside of the pandemic because I think a lot of people are taking it day by day.
Sure.
What do you kind of look at future wise down the road? Anything that you want to accomplish or anything that you have in mind?
I don't really know. Before it was always to get back to St. Louis. I've wiped that out. That TV market has kind of changed over the years, and it's not really a place I want to go to anymore. ESPN was always a big thing that I wanted to do when I was, in sports. I have thought about wanting to see how far I could take the news side. Do I want to go to a Cleveland? Do I want to go to a Pittsburgh? Do I want to go to a big city, big market? But right now, I'm enjoying being here just because we moved here for a reason. We moved here for family. And I want, my mother-in-law to be able to see, her grandkids grow up. And so, this is my wife's home and we've really enjoyed being here. So right now I don't have any plans. I am just kind of, really focused on we're in a dogfight with WKBN in terms of ratings. And so I'm really focused on trying to, keep us at number one and really just continuing to be hopefully the TV station that people turn to for their news, whether in sports. So I'm really focused on trying to make this TV station the best it can be. But I don't put it out of the realm of possibility to maybe once my kids get a little bit more grown or they go to college, that I don't want to maybe go see what life is like at a bigger market. But I really enjoy being here. I'm the anchor at 6 and 11. I'm also the assistant news director. So, I get to make some decisions in terms of content and stuff like that at night. And I manage the folks at night. And so I enjoy that aspect of it. And sometimes the grass isn't always greener when you go to a bigger market. So right now I'm enjoying being here, but I don't know. There's a part of me that wants to see what I could do at a bigger market with some, if I can work my way up to be an anchor maybe, or if I want to just go report and be on some more impactful stories. I don't have any desire to go like network or anything like that. I think at my stage, I'm 45, that I'd rather just kind of stay local instead of traveling all over the place. And so I think right now, just kind of hanging out here and really focusing on making WFMJ the best it can be. But, hey, 5, 6, 7, 8 years down the road, maybe we'll see what's out there and see if an opportunity presents itself. But I'm certainly not looking to go anywhere. That's for sure.
Okay. Well, Derek, it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Taking time out of your busy schedule. Now, every guest that's been on my show, I go to the 5 questions at the end that I'll ask. You can answer them. You can answer them. It's personal or professional, however you want to answer them. Just fun.
Is this one-word answers, or is this like expanded answers?
It's up to you. It depends.
Okay.
You're being graded.
Okay, great.
So, starting with what's your best experience, personal or professional?
My best experience.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't tell me that it was going to be this hard.
These are hey, that's why everyone gets them. You're not the only one.
This is like the hot seat, right? You should have given me these in advance so I could have an answer for you.
I'm not that. No, that's not how this works. These are the fun questions everyone wants to hear.
Oh man.
It could be anything, professional.
No. Yeah, I mean, professionally, it'd be getting to interview the vice president. That was probably really my best professional moment. Personally, obviously, it was the birth of my 4 children and my 4 boys.
Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Your best accomplishment.
Best accomplishment. Professionally, it would be I'm multiply Emmy nominated. I haven't won the award yet, but being recognized by my peers with many different AP awards, and then the Emmy nominations and Press Club of Cleveland awards. Just being recognized for my work that I've been able to do in journalism and broadcasting.
Okay. What's your best memory? Personal or professional?
My best memory. Wow. Let's see. These are loaded questions.
No, they're not. They're not loaded questions.
There's so many. Best memory. I don't know.
So you can name a couple. There's like I tell everyone, there's no wrong answers.
No, I know, but I know. All right, getting an interview with the vice president again. Going back there. I personally a hole in one. A hole in one that I had on the golf course. Now, granted, I lived on a little executive par 3, so it was like 80-yard par holes. So, but still, it's a hole in one, and that's all that matters. I remember hitting it and seeing it go in, my first one, and it was unbelievable.
Well, and if anyone says par 3, par 4, it doesn't matter because you still put a 1 on the card.
Absolutely. It may have been short, but it was still a 1.
Exactly. Who would be your role model?
Again, I would go back to Bob Costas, looking up to him as a role model in terms of what he did and how he, presented himself in terms as a sports anchor and sports broadcaster. There hasn't really been anybody news-wise, because one of the pieces of advice that I give to people is be yourself. Now, you can look up and see how people are doing things, but don't try to do the same delivery as them. Don't try to maybe, word things the same. I mean, everybody's got their own style, and you can learn from them and how they maybe tell a story, but be yourself. And so I think that looking up to Bob and how he did things, I think that was really instrumental for me in wanting to get into sports broadcasting.
Okay. If there was one person you would want to meet, past or present, who would it be?
And why?
Well, you can add that part if you like.
One person, past or present.
The reason why I don't tell many people this, the reason why I do this is because this gives the understanding of, hey, there's a lot of people we may have wanted to meet in the past or even present. And I think it's a good commodity of what we can do. Sure.
I don't know. I mean, there's no one that just says, oh, I've got to meet this person. There's so many people I would want to meet.
Give me a couple then. Possibly Michael Jordan.
Yes, but I'm trying to come up with somebody that I think. I'm a history buff too, and so I would go back in history and some of the people that, like Roosevelt and Abraham Lincoln, and just back in those times, and to meet those people, to to see what they went through, and man, gosh, I mean, yeah, Michael Jordan would be one in sports. I don't really have it's funny, like some of the people that I like, one of the our assignment manager and news content guy, Justin Mitchell, he's like a big music guy, and so I know he'd be like Bruce Springsteen and just all these different icons like that. But just off the top of my head, I mean, I honestly I can't even. Well, okay, so I'm a huge St. Louis Cardinals fan. And so I think, to go back and Stan Musial, is always one of the great Cardinal greats of all time. I think, being able to meet him would be pretty neat. And so thinking about that, I don't know, Tony. I mean, Off the top of my head, I just don't know. I'd have to really think about. I don't know. I don't know why I want to think about it so that I can give you a really good answer, and have a reason for behind it. But I mean,
Well, I mean, like me, I would like to one day. I would like to meet like an Abraham Lincoln or a
mhm,
John F. Kennedy and just kind of
mhm,
sit down and what were they thinking at that time? I mean, you're just a year younger than when Kennedy became president,
right, right.
and
Yeah, I was born in '75.
yeah, and and Abraham Lincoln did all this stuff
What he
back
did
in
to
the
free the
day of
slaves
exactly.
and the Civil War and everything, right? For sure.
In what you could go through as president compared to what it is now with
Mhm,
technology and
mhm,
everything else. So,
mhm.
and there's some other people that I think everyone would love to meet if they sit and think about it.
If they saw it, sit and think about it, absolutely,
Yeah, and
absolutely.
that's why I just like to ask the questions because
No, I know
it
it's a
gives,
great question. It really is. It gives some insight. Absolutely.
yeah. And this question I should have asked before the five questions because I think it comes with your professionalism and everything like that. Is if someone wants to get into the business,
Hmm.
what advice would you give them?
Hmm. So obviously, go to school for it. Go to school for journalism. Go to school for broadcast. Internships. Intern at many different television stations, and network as much as possible. But really, you've got to be curious. I think if you're going to succeed in this business, you've got to be a curious individual. You've got to want to know the whys and the wheres, and you've got to want to know about things and why they happen and the way they happen. Um, but also hard work. I mean, you've got to be willing to put in the time and the effort to get a small crummy job right out of college, and then know that that hard work and determination is going to pay off at some point. And just really, having that self motivation, and determination to hone your craft, whatever it may be. It doesn't matter if it's broadcasting, whatever it may be, but you want to be the best plumber, you want to be the best technician, I want to be the best broadcaster I can be. So I'm constantly watching other TV stations. I'm constantly looking at different storytellers out there, seeing what they're doing, and trying to steal little pieces of it, so that I can maybe make myself more well-rounded. And so that's the advice I would give: is always be willing to better yourself in every aspect of your job, of your personal life, whatever it may be. Because if you're constantly working and trying to learn every single day, you're going to become better at your craft. And so if you're looking to go into this business, just know that you're not going to be an anchor right away. You're not going to be the network right away. You're going to probably start off small, but just bust your butt, put your head down, and learn as much as you can from the people around you, learn as much as you can by watching other medium and other broadcasts, and then just hopefully take that, soak it in, and work hard, and I think that you'll have a chance to have success in this business.
Derek, I appreciate you for your insight and your time
Sorry about my
tonight.
answers.
No, yeah, hey, everything's fine, no problem. I
I don't
thank you
like
for
being on,
taking.
I don't like being on the other side. I like asking the questions.
Well, too bad. This time you're on the other side, just like
I
everyone
know.
else is. You're in a different position. I
Well,
appreciate
I'm
you
honored that
taking.
you had me, Tony. Thank
I
you.
appreciate. I thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, and you're always welcome on the show.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for watching tonight. If you need any more additional interviews or podcasts, please go to anthonyvspano.com. Be blessed. Have a great night and stay safe, everyone.